Greetings and welcome to the Equity.Guru Investor Roundtable. Today we are talking about uranium. I'm Rob. Down here in the basement with me, scheming world domination is Galen. Far corner is Vishal. Up top, very serious, the investor, Chris Perry. These guys are going to talk about it for investment reasons. Again, I'm looking to build a nuclear weapon and take over the world. So we'll see how we'll do there. But first of all, here's the companies we're talking about. Skyharbour, we have discussed previously, SYH on the venture exchange. They're active. CanAlaska, CVV on the venture. Fission 3.0. It sounds like a movie. Sounds like something else, a drink. FUU on the venture. And Globex. It's a little bit of a much larger cap. We'll do a little comparing and contrasting. That's GMX on the Toronto Exchange. That's the dealie. And Vishal is going to start first because he's Mr. Minerals.
Yeah, so Rob, we don't want to use uranium for nuclear weapons. We want to use them for peaceful purposes here, for energy. And, I got to bring this up. Bill Gates, and I think in a previous uranium show, I called him Bull Gates, but he is putting his, money where his mouth is. He is going big into uranium, saying that it is the energy to combat the climate crisis because it does not produce any CO2. And,
just radiation.
Just radiation, and then how to deal with it, after whatever 50 or 100 years when you have to get rid of it and then, bring in the new uranium. But I guess we'll deal with that down the road.
In 150 years.
Or something.
Kick the can down the road.
Yeah. But, Bill Gates, he co-founded a company called Terra Power, and they are building a next generation nuclear power. And I think we discussed in the last, maybe it was a few weeks ago, but they are building a plant now in Wyoming. So they are getting a reactor there. We've talked about China. They're now basically want to, I guess, get off coal and start building a bit more nuclear because of course, this CO2-free energy, CO2-free pollution. Coal is quite dirty, and they have a pollution problem in many parts of China there. You have India doing the same. You have Japan actually turning on reactors now and getting back to, nuclear energy. The French are doing the same, and, the French are notorious because 75% of the country's power comes from nuclear energy. And, the U.S. now is beginning to catch along. And the reason why uranium is hot is obviously because of the supply and demand issues there. If you are thinking that uranium is going to be that clean energy, climate crisis combating energy source in the future, supply and demand, a lot of the supply is actually coming from Kazakhstan, who are generally allied with the Russians. And there's a great book called The Colder War with Marin Katusa, who wrote this book a few years ago, but he talks about, yay, we're going uranium, and by the way, the Russians are going to run everything because they'll sell you the uranium, and then they also have the technology and the capabilities to enrich the uranium. But now you're seeing, countries like the U.S. Jump on this trend. We talked about the Trump administration made uranium a strategic asset. And basically, it's looking good for the North American uranium explorers because sooner or later, we're going to have to increase that supply. So it is, definitely a resource for the future. What I guess we're going to talk about today is this great opportunity because we've had this almost everything sell off in markets. We've seen precious metals fall, oil fall, stocks fall, cryptos fall. But I just want to mention this, uranium actually for the month is actually still green. It's up flat, but I mean, it's better than being down 27, 30% or over 10%. So uranium has actually held up quite well, but it's probably because the market's not traded as much as the other things, but we'll take a look at that when we take a look at the charts. The companies that we will be looking at today, and they all have assets in the Athabasca region in Saskatchewan. We went with that because that has the best grade and it's a safe jurisdiction. I know there are a few companies here that have really good resources in parts of Africa, but basically, we try to stay away from AK-47 countries when we deal with resources. So we have Skyharbour. We've discussed this company many times in the past. Have their uranium explorer, and we have some big names. I believe even Marin Katusa still connected with them. We have Fission 3.0, which call themselves a uranium project generator and property bank with 16 properties in the Athabasca region, and they're just de-risking them to be able to either sell off or do a joint venture with another company in the future. And Fission, just by the way, just today on the 7th, while we're recording this, they are opening up or they have announced a brokered private placement for $5 million. So some cash on the way. We have CanAlaska, which is also a project generator with a lot of land in the Athabasca region, but they do a whole bunch of stuff, base metals, gold. They even have diamond assets as well. So they're quite nearby, Cameco. So we'll talk about that whole region in just a minute. And then finally, we have, I guess, not purely a uranium play, but it is, if you're big into commodities in general, we have Globex, who are making revenue, by the way, because they do have some properties bringing in some royalties and streams, but they also have a uranium aspect to them as well.
I think at one point you might have slipped into the bad habit of, like my uncle Homer Simpson once famously said, it's pronounced nuclear.
Nuclear.
I think you might have actually said that.
I believe I heard someone on a hockey podcast this morning refer to themselves as a pundit.
A pundit as opposed to a pundit. That might have been me. What's happening? What jumps out at you there, CP? I know you have a little Skyharbour background, but what's tickling your fancy?
Yeah, I like Skyharbour a lot. I especially like it now that someone has decided that they want to get out of their position and driven it from 80 cents down to 45. If you missed the first big run up that nearly tripled the share price of Skyharbour, now's your chance to have the second version. I'm never one to call a bottom, but it does seem like over the last few days that the stock has started to solidify a bit and go back to where it should be, nearly as high as my hair. Sorry, I've got hat hair. So for mine, Skyharbour is a good little uranium explorer. It's going to go up with the fortunes of uranium. It's probably going to go down with the fortunes of uranium. I think that uranium's got a lot of upside, as Vishal has discussed. And that means that, to me, Skyharbour at, what are they at right now? It's in terms of their market cap, $56 million market cap right now seems to me to be a good price to get in with. The news is fairly regular. They did have one of their co-founders and directors passed away, sadly, but the work continues and has been going hell for leather for quite some time. So for me, I like Skyharbour as just a base uranium play to rise with the sector. But I trust the people behind it, which is something that we've mentioned many times and can never be mentioned too many times, because we've all seen the guys that when graphite becomes a thing for a minute, suddenly have a graphite mine. And the guys who, when cobalt is a thing, suddenly they switch from silver to cobalt. And these guys have just been in uranium since day one. They know what it's worth. They've been working towards a goal. They're getting towards a goal, but you get a half price deal on it right now. So I like that. I also like Globex. We don't speak nearly enough about Globex as a client company, I think, because they just keep pounding it out. This is a royalty play. They're in all sorts of metals. I mean, goodness me, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, copper, zinc, lead, nickel, manganese, titanium oxide, iron, molybdenum, lithium, rare earths. They are just looking up and down at resources and saying, who needs some money? And what are you going to give us if we give you that money? And that recipe it's as old as the ages. I think, when Croesus was accruing famous riches back in the prehistoric times, it was coming out of resources as much as anything else. Maybe some slavery, but that was resources back then. You can look at the markets and say, well, resources are getting pounded right now, and it's probably not a good time. No, what's happening is everyone's getting pounded because it is currently, say it with me, everybody, tax loss selling season.
Exactly. Yep.
So your cannabis companies are getting destroyed. Your psychedelic companies are getting destroyed. Yes, resources are getting destroyed. everyone gets destroyed around this time of the year. They really should change some rules maybe so that we don't just have the entire market take a giant shit in its hat every fucking December. But here we are. We're at a place where good companies get shredded because somebody's decided that they need to take in a loss that they accrued 11 months ago, 24 months ago, 36 months ago. Now's the time to get some money back on their taxes. So you get a half price deal on Skyharbour, and quite frankly on Globex, you get it from $1.50 halfway through this year. You get it for $1 now.
Yep.
Company's better than it was. Its company's done deals. Company's got more royalties than it started with. You look through their news flow, and it's just options, royalties. They've closed some sales on their royalties to get some cash in the door. They've made acquisitions. Like, this is a very active group that just gets bigger. So why is it down right now? Because people look at resources as one big hat, as an ETF almost, and they don't delineate between guys that are doing the work and have something and guys that aren't. So even if you look at the Globex stock chart, in May it went through a bit of a burst and fell back. But if you take that away, it's kind of a straight line going in a nice 45-degree angle from the start of the year to the finish of the year. I like it a lot. People have shown that they're good for their word. They've accrued wealth for shareholders, and that makes me happy. The other two deals I'm less familiar with, but if I look at their stock charts, they follow the fortunes of uranium. And this is the thing that you'll find again and again with resource stocks. I'm someone who always says, I don't want to talk about the technicals. There are other people more smart than me that will talk about the technicals. And by the way the stock chart moves, I will know whether there's good technicals here or not. What I want is the story. I want to know why this deal is better for me to put my uranium money into you than to put it into somebody else. Otherwise, I'm just going to go with an ETF. And CanAlaska, I like the diversity there. I like that it's a solid company that is built on its ambition over the last year. It had a long period, if I go back like 5 years, where it was just down every year, because that's what uranium did, right? We had Fukushima, we had people saying, oh my God, we're never going to build nukes again. And lo and behold, we're building nukes again, especially in China. But, in North America, it's going to happen. It's the environmentally friendly way to generate electricity. And so what's happening in the last year is people are starting to figure out that you could actually build a nuke and no one's going to kill you for it. And the environmentalists aren't going to chain themselves to trees necessarily. So, here you've got CanAlaska, you've gone from 16 cents, hell, even 8 cents back in a year and a half ago, to a point where it hit 84 and has since slunk down 50%, as a lot of uranium producers have now that we're in tax loss selling season. Look at that last slide off. It is all tax loss for me, right? It is all guys getting out of their positions. Yes, I know this is an up company, but you don't know when people have got up and you don't know when they've got out. So if someone got in there at 84 cents and it's sitting at 60, that's a tax loss. So I'm going to sell my deal and it's going to go down to 44 cents by the time I'm done. So you can look at it as a whole and say, hell, the upward mobility over the last 2 years has been great. Or you can look at it as a short-term opportunity. When people start buying back in January, February, what do you think is going to happen to that 44 cents? This is a company that has assets. It's not paper. It's a good deal. Fission I have a bit more trouble with, just because back in the day, I had some dealings with Crazy Dev, who ran Fission Uranium. And let's just say that there are people I would put my money in that would be a little more secure. Fission 3.0 was a spin-off. And as a result of that, has kind of, I think, been associated with the negatives of Fission Uranium without maybe necessarily getting enough of the positives. But it's been standalone now for enough years that these guys have put together a decent package. It is a decently run company, and it is, like the others, it's gone from 2.5 cents to 25 cents in the last 2 years. That's a pretty good run. I don't necessarily think that 25 cents is the end of it. If we look at the market cap for FUU, if my computer will do it, it's a $45 million deal. And I think that's pretty fair for what they have. And I think it's fair for the sector that they're in, that is going on a bit of a run. The Athabasca is, look, if you need suddenly to get a whole lot more uranium, there's a lot of uranium out there, right? It's just not necessarily easy to get at. Or you need to go and get your AK-47s out and protect the trucks, bring it out. The Athabasca Basin, the knock on it is are we going to drain a lake to get at a uranium? And the answer is, yeah, that's what you're going to do. You're going to drain a fucking lake and you're going to get at billions of dollars of uranium. We can make that work. So if we're at a place now where uranium is about to get supercharged in demand, the will be there to go into the Athabasca, and a whole lot of these exploration plays will suddenly be production plays. So in keeping, I like all four of these deals. I especially like them now. I think take advantage of the tax loss sell-off and go forth, my friends, into the glowing yonder.
Nice. We'll come back around and talk true dollars and cents, but we have one more individual. A lot of information covered already, Galen, but we'll let you personalize this if you'd like. And especially since for Halloween you dressed up as Uranium Boy. I think it's kind of a coincidence.
Well, that was actually not a dressing. That was just me doing what I do every day. Now, uranium is very interesting, especially today. What I want to stress, however, is that this isn't the same old nuclear, there we go, technology that we are familiar with of 3 Mile Island and of Fukushima and else. Those reactors were essentially destined to fail somewhat. Basically, when this whole idea of nuclear generation of power was sort of started in the States, there were two different systems. One was a regular fission reactor, and the other was what they call a breeder reactor. Fission reactor was cooled using salt water, and then the breeder reactor was cooled using molten chloride, so it's liquid salt. Basically what happened is an Army general made the determination of which technology would come ahead, because how else were they going to power their submarines? It was much more economical to fit these things into a back of a submarine and just pump the seawater through to cool it down. Unfortunately, there were major problems with this particular technology. Had a tendency to melt down. That was a big problem. But we went with the technology anyway, and as with 3 Mile Island and Fukushima and a bunch of other incidents, we ended up with the nasty result of what that was. However, Bill Gates has resurrected the breeder technology. TerraPower is actually developing what they call a molten chloride fast reactor, a breeder reactor, which uses far less fissionable material over the long term. It uses it up to the point where there's hardly anything left when it leaves. Doesn't actually have a huge amount of seawater that you need to send out into the environment. So as far as a polluting component to this way of generating electricity, this is the far superior technology, and I'm really excited that it is being resurrected, because honestly, going forth, this is the bomb. No pun intended. This is what we need to bring this into some sort of environmentally sensitive and safe operation of nuclear power. So that's what I wanted to add in there, in case anybody's still on the fence about how the industry is going forward and what possible dangers it presents. This is actually going to be a far safer and more productive world. And I'm so glad that they've actually dismissed the economical aspect and also the military-industrial use of it, and have decided that, yes, the breeder technology was better, way better. When you shut it down, like when you shut down the cooling, the whole system just shuts down. No meltdown. Isn't that wonderful? So, yes, something to look forward to. And I think because of that, these plays and nuclear power will be not just a part of the new world of energy. It will be the foundational source. As yet, wind, solar, tidal power, geothermal, it's all sporadic in relatively speaking, meaning that there will be lows and highs, and there's no way to really constantly power a grid off of it. It's great as backup, as filler, as a stored source. But nuclear power is the one that will actually power the grids. This is what's going to happen, kids. So
I agree with Galen there. I was just thinking, just thinking about it, because we had a show on solar and wind, and I'm just thinking, maybe it's more economical if, say, an individual like you and I, used it to sell the power back to the grid. But, nuclear is going to be the basis for everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with solar or wind, but this nuclear is constant, and it just generates forever. So, yeah.
Michelle, the four companies we've talked about, Skyharbour, CanAlaska, Fission 3.0, and Globex, and Chris has referred to them already. So we can blaze through what we're looking at for investors, and actually in this case, the opportunity that exists on the charts.
Yeah, for sure. I'll blaze through this. Just quickly, as we talked about, uranium hasn't really dropped as much compared to everything else. So I do agree with Chris here. I think there's a lot of tax loss, selling going on as we are in December. I want to first highlight two quick charts here. If you guys are bullish on uranium or want to keep track of uranium, I would include Cameco just on your watch list. I know these are sort of big boys, but if you want to sort of track where prices of uranium are going or where the whole uranium sector in general is going, Cameco is like the largest producer here in Canada. CCO is the ticker. I have a weekly chart here, and most of these charts are going to be on the longer term weekly chart. So essentially each of these candles represent 1 week of price action, and basically Cameco, and again, do your own diligence here, but it is at a buy zone. It is at a support zone. If you're just following markets technically, this area around 26 was a high that we just recently made. We haven't seen these highs since 2014, and this is going to be this is similar with basically all these uranium stocks that we're going to talk about with the recent move in September, taking out highs, that we haven't seen for almost 7 years. We did pull back here around the $26 zone on Cameco, and I think we are seeing some buyers here. If we do close above 30 this week, then I think it's looking good. But maybe this is one of those stocks that probably fell under pressure more because of it is a larger name, but it fell under pressure more due to the broader stock market sell-off there. So keep an eye out on Cameco. And if you want to track the price of uranium, I have this here on tradingeconomics.com. You can take a look at the spot price of uranium right now, which is $46. I talk about in the last show we did on uranium about drawing a triangle pattern here. And basically uranium's just bouncing up and down between that triangle. So essentially the price is consolidating. Unfortunately, I can't draw that on this, but I can draw that here on the Sprott Physical Uranium Fund, which is U.UN. So this is one that I use to basically keep track of the price of uranium, and obviously what this does will impact, in my opinion, a lot of these uranium stock moves. Chris mentioned Skyharbour. It looked really good earlier on, in October, mid-October, where we took out highs again, not seen since 2014. It looked like the stock was ready to go, but unfortunately we actually failed that breakout at 62 cents, and we fell below 50 cents actually this week. But this is looking like a good area where I would think you would see some buyers at this support zone here around 44 cents. If that doesn't hold, then we are looking a bit more lower at 37.5 cents to 31 cents. But I think, as Chris mentioned, the tax off season, and I think uranium will recover actually with the markets and with other commodity prices in general. So I think there's great opportunity here to buy some of these drops here. And the same could be said really for everything else. And Fission, once again, just on a technical perspective here, I'm bullish on Fission above 15 cents. The stock is trading at 23.5 cents. By the way, just look at some of the gains today in uranium. So we have 6% gains on most of them. CanAlaska, which we'll talk about in just a second, is up 12% for the day. But Fission 3.0, pretty nice recovery this week so far. And I think this is one where a lot of people are looking to just basically buy the dip, because to be honest, the uptrend pattern in Fission here after this breakout above 15 cents is still intact. And just in technical terms, again, as long as we're above 15 cents, we're still in that uptrend. So this can fall, but I think the dips will be bought on Fission. CVV or CanAlaska, we talked about that big 12% day to day, but I mean, this is a huge support zone for the company here at 44 cents to 50 cents here. And, you're getting quite a good deal because this stock was just around 75 cents, 75 cents just 4 weeks ago or a month ago. The last time we tested 44 cents, back in August of this year, we had quite the nice pop. We actually popped, what is that amount? 90%. So maybe history repeats itself again. This is why we use these support levels or these technicals, because we look for areas price has reacted in the past where we saw a lot of buying. And this is definitely a case where we have seen a lot of buying. So this is the one I'm actually following quite closely here, because I think if there's one stock that you want to act on, say today, just with the technicals intact and everything, I think CanAlaska is probably the best candidate here, just because it is at a very, very nice support zone here. And then GMX, I think this is a solid company if you are bullish commodities in general. They have revenues. You guys know I love my royalty and streamers when we talk about gold and silver and copper. They have that. And if you're in the opinion that commodities are cheap compared to everything else in the markets, we're talking about including the overall stock market in general and cryptocurrencies and other assets. I think GMX is one of those pure commodity plays that would fit really well in, commodity allocation in the portfolio. The stock has been basically tearing it up since 2020. We found some resistance at $1.50, and then since then, just a slow sell-off here into October and November. We began basing here at that $1 zone, 90 cents to $1, let's call it a zone. And we're still above $1 right now. So I think the opportunity here as well, actually, on Globex Mining is quite enticing here at $1, and maybe another one that you can act on. Even though it's not a pure uranium play, there's a uranium element to it. But if you're bullish on all commodities, like some of us are, then keep an eye out here on Globex. But some good-looking charts here, and nothing really to be worried about on the longer-term charts. It does look like, the sell-offs are here just due to tax losses, and uranium prices are holding up quite well. And I think this is the time for investors to pick up some good uranium plays at good deals here.
Well, we'll find out if that's exactly what the posse wants to do. First of all, quick little reminder, hopefully you can hear this.
Your many years as a nuclear technician, we're putting you on a nuclear sub.
Nuclear. It's pronounced nuclear.
Did you guys hear that?
I did, yeah.
There you go. See, Homer knows what he's talking about. What are you going to spend of the $7,500, Chris? You're muted. There you go.
So of your 7,500, I'd look at both Skyharbour and Globex as being real opportunities right now. I'm not sure that, with a little bit of tax loss selling season still to come, that today is the day to jump on them. There may be some other folks out there that decide to clear up some cash for little Jimmy to get some Santa presents and maybe a diamond ring for the girlfriend and maybe another one for the wife. So I think probably hold your horses on a little bit. Uranium isn't going to suddenly run away to the stratosphere in the next 3 days. Just keep an eye on the general sense. I think of all four of those companies, there's opportunities across the board. But those two that I mentioned would be the ones that I'd be looking to maybe throw a couple of thousand at, maybe just keep watching for what the dips actually are. If I see people starting to build positions and that share price going up, I'm still getting a really good deal, even if I wait a couple of days.
Just out of curiosity, before we jump to Galen, in terms of butting up against the Christmas holiday, for example, how close do you want to take it? Like, I mean, I get, like you just said, it's not going to go crazy over a 3 or 4 day stretch. So like maybe.
Look, in a general sense, I've cashed out of pretty much everything that I'm going to cash out of.
Why now?
That includes loss makers. It also includes things that I've had wins with, right? Yeah. Because what I want to do is, if I'm going to pay capital gains, I'm going to play that off against the losses and hopefully get to a zero sum. So even though there's companies out there that I like, that I may get back into in January, February, if I don't see an immediate catalyst that's going to mean that I should hold on to it, if they're waiting for next financials or waiting for a 43-101, like, I'm just going to step out, let that train continue chugging along where it is, be it up or down. So it's a dangerous time for folks, right?
Yeah.
You want to claim your tax loss. It doesn't mean you can't just jump straight back on the stock on January 1. You've got to let it sit for a little while. You can't be obvious about things. But people are making moves right now, and they're not always going to be moves that you look at on a share chart and think that's sensible. So, the Equity.Guru portfolio is very cash right now. And it's always that way this time of the year.
All right. Galen?
I think it's all very interesting. I'm not really, and never have been, all that optimistic about project generators. I just, it's a little too removed from the whole process. And it's not to say that they're bad companies. It's just that for me, that's more of a stock speculation than an actual buying into fundamentals, the underlying fundamentals. So I would be more interested in Skyharbour. They're a true uranium play. And then Globex, because they're just a fucking monster. I mean, come on. And a revenue generator. I think it's like $14 million churning through their system. So they've, churn and burn. They're just making money. So I'd rather get involved in that. I don't think I would actually invest in the commodity of uranium itself or even the ETFs that are associated with it. Because as far as I understand, uranium is a spot price determined by offtake agreements, correct?
Yeah, there's no
there's no tradable market for them. So I would stay away from the commodity itself and just find people that I think are interesting within a space that I know is going to expand. Now, as we all have been talking about, it is tax loss season, so I'd probably wait for January, February myself as well. But I think I would probably split $4,000 between the two, the ones that had mentioned being Globex and Skyharbour, and see where things go.
Michelle, the last call.
Yep, similar approach. I would be patient just now. Historically, I don't really buy any new positions around December unless it's just too good to pass off. But usually I would wait till January. So I think I would hold off a little bit on some of these positions. Globex, it's sort of different for me because it's not technically a uranium pure play. But I think, if you're bullish on commodities, this is definitely a play to look at. And usually, at $1, that's quite an important support zone. So I would be putting, as an initial position between 1 to 2K in Globex if you are going to be looking at commodities in general. But if you're just going to be looking at uranium, I wouldn't really include Globex in my sort of uranium sort of pot, I guess, because they're just more for broader commodity play. So that leaves us with Skyharbour, Fission, and CanAlaska. And, even the Sprott price, the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust here. So going back to Galen quickly, if you do want to sort of play the spot price, maybe this is the market to look at. And there were people mentioning back in the day when uranium prices were spiking that they were blaming Sprott because they believed that, Sprott was buying that physical uranium, which was causing...
Like JP Morgan.
Which was causing the spot price of uranium. So if you are, into the commodities, I would say, you can invest a 1K here in Sprott Physical. But Skyharbour, I think, is the one. You have a lot of big names behind it, good asset as well. And I would be putting 2K in this one as well. So I think that's about, I think I mentioned 5 to 6K there, but I would be patient and I would wait until January for Skyharbour, just because I think there could be a bit more sell-off here for Skyharbour to come here in these next few days.
All right, gentlemen. Well said. SYH is Skyharbour for folks that are interested. SYH on the Venture Exchange. We've got CanAlaska, CVV on the Venture. Fission 3.0. Which is FUU, not just FU, FUU.
FU too.
Yeah, FU twice. FUU on the Venture, and Globex GMX on the Toronto Exchange. That's it. A lot of Athabasca floating around there. Is that how you say it? Athabasca.
You betcha.
Nuclear.
It's good with the ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca. Gentlemen, we have to tell the folks out there, it's been a long roundtable, by the way.
This has been an epic one, and I take the full blame for it.
Epic. We do warn people, because we have to warn them that they need to do their own homework, their own research. Don't take everything we say with a grain of salt and run to the bank or anything, or to your investor, because you got to do a little homework on your own. We cannot guarantee results from what we tell you, nor can we guarantee results from past performance. There you go. That's CP up there. He's right now online trying to figure out what Christmas gifts he's going to buy the other three of us. Over there to my left is Galen, uranium boy. He paints his head all silver and walks the streets.
I glow at night.
He does glow. And Vishal, the chart attack master. For them guys, I'm Roberto. We'll see you on the very next Equity Guru Investor Roundtable.